Welcome to Buddha Balance, a space where we journey inward together, heal deep emotional wounds, and touch the essence of true peace. In this noisy and ever-changing world, stress seems almost unavoidable. But what if you could change the way you see stress? What if stress wasn't the enemy, but the teacher? A doorway to inner strength, one you may have never realized existed? Today's video is a long and profound journey, but each part is a subtle gateway to new awareness. It will help you understand yourself more deeply and teach you how to walk with stress, guided by compassion and wisdom. If you're feeling tired or overwhelmed, take a deep breath and allow yourself to stay present with this video. There's no need to rush. Think of it as a meditative tea session, slow, mindful, and full of discovery. Don't forget to subscribe and share if this message speaks to you, because what you share might just become a gentle light for someone else on their path. Now, let's begin. What is stress? Its structure, origins, and evolution. What is stress? 3 different perspectives. In everyday life, stress is a word we've all uttered, as if it were an inevitable part of our existence. We often call something stressful when the body is exhausted, the mind is chaotic, and our emotions are out of control. But perhaps the most important question isn't whether you're stressed or not, it's, what do you understand about stress? Stress is typically labeled as negative, a feeling to be eliminated, or even the root of illness. But when viewed through 3 distinct lenses, psychology, medicine, and Buddhism, we begin to see that stress isn't so simple. Psychology defines stress as a psychophysiological response to challenge, change, or perceived threat. It's a primitive survival mechanism known as the fight-or-flight response, designed to increase chances of survival in wild environments. In fact, a moderate level of stress can enhance memory, boost motivation, and even spark creativity. Modern medicine sees stress as a biological neuroendocrine event, involving the release of cortisol, adrenaline, and noradrenaline when the body needs to respond quickly. This reaction is helpful in short bursts. But when prolonged, it directly impacts the cardiovascular system, immune function, digestion, sleep, and brain performance. Chronic stress is a biological foundation for many modern diseases, heart conditions, diabetes, depression, and even cancer. Buddhism views stress as a manifestation of inner turmoil. It isn't something external, but a symptom of the restless mind, of clinging to the ego and unrealistic expectations of life. It reflects the conflict between what is and what we want. According to the Buddha, the root of dukkha, including stress, is ignorance, avijja, craving, ta, and aversion, dosa. Suffering arises from delusion. It ceases when the mind no longer chases illusions. Sayadaw Nikaya, Connected Discourses. Here, the question isn't whether stress is good or bad, but how you approach it. If you treat it as an enemy, you'll be caught in a cycle of resistance. If you see it as a signal, a doorway back to body and mind, stress becomes a profound reminder. Pause, and look within. This is where modern science meets ancient Buddhist wisdom. Stress is not a sentence, it's a message. And understanding that message is the first step in a journey of true healing. The mechanism of stress response and clear categorization, friend or foe? When you hear a sudden car horn, prepare for a big presentation, or receive a cold message from someone you care about, your brain instantly switches into survival mode. The sympathetic nervous system triggers the ancient fight-or-flight response. The adrenal glands release adrenaline and cortisol, causing a series of changes. Your heart rate speeds up to pump more blood to the muscles. Breathing becomes shallow and rapid to supply oxygen. Digestion is put on hold to conserve energy. Your mind sharpens into hyper-alertness to spot danger. This response is essential if you're being chased by a wild animal. But in modern society, the threats are no longer tigers or lions, they're deadlines, unread emails, unpaid bills, and the haunting feeling of not being enough. When this reaction is triggered too often without resolution, it becomes chronic stress, a silent destroyer of both body and spirit. See the body and mind clearly, observe every intention. The awakened mind is still even in the storm. Majjhima Nikaya, middle-length discourses. Yet, not all stress is harmful. Both modern psychology and Eastern wisdom agree. There are different types of stress, and knowing how to distinguish them can help us face them, rather than generalize or deny. Common types of stress. Eustress, positive stress. This short-term stress boosts motivation and focus. It often shows up before important events like exams or new challenges. Your hands might tremble and your heart might race, but your mind is alert and energized. Distress, negative stress. Prolonged stress without relief turns into chronic fatigue. It wears down mental clarity, causes sleep loss, confusion, and burnout. Think toxic workplaces, unresolved conflicts, or long-term loneliness. Internal stress. Unlike the others, this form comes from within. It stems from self-comparison, feeling inadequate, or holding unrealistic expectations. You might live a seemingly stable life, but always feel like you're not smart enough, beautiful enough, or successful enough. Existential stress. This deeper form arises when confronting questions like, why am I here, or who am I in this world? It's often silent and hard to name. Without inner clarity, it may lead to depression and a loss of life's meaning. Stress is like the wind. It can knock you down or lift you higher, depending on how you set your sail. Modern Buddhist thought. Recognizing what kind of stress you're experiencing is the first step in reclaiming your agency. Like a Zen master watching clouds pass in the sky, not pushing them away, just observing and becoming aware. When you're aware, you're no longer the victim, you begin to master your own mind. Where does stress come from? When life and the inner self fall out of sync. In today's world, stress doesn't just come from external pressures like work, time, or obligations. More often, it emerges from inner conflicts. We carry many roles, yet struggle to remember who we truly are. We're torn between expectation and reality, between chaos and the yearning for peace. Here are the most common silent stressors that eat away at our well-being. Financial pressure. Debt, bills, and the burden of being the family provider trap many in a state of constant lack and helplessness. Outwardly, they seem fine, but inside, they're drowning. Social relationships. Conflict with parents, partners, friends, or colleagues can lead to immense stress. When you feel misunderstood, you begin to perform to please others, losing your authenticity. Self-comparison and expectation. I should be doing better, why is everyone else happy but me? These repetitive inner questions create invisible anxiety, a form of long-term internal stress. Social media pressure. The quiet erosion from perfectly curated photos and glowing success stories makes us question our worth. The feeling of falling behind in the happiness race is a modern kind of stress. Loss of direction. When you no longer know why you're living, when every morning is just a list of tasks with no purpose, this is existential stress in action. Without recognition and compassionate awareness, these causes silently accumulate into long-term suffering, not just for individuals, but for families and generations. When the mind is restless, the body cannot be at peace. Ajahn Chah. The impact of stress on the mind and spiritual life. Stress doesn't just destroy the body, it suffocates the spiritual ground where peace once grew. Under prolonged stress, the mind begins to shift how it sees the world. Everything appears darker, heavier, more confusing, more suspicious. You may realize stress has deeply affected you when you lose your natural joy. Things that once made you happy feel empty. You feel unmotivated, like life is on repeat, and nothing is worth anticipating. You live with a quiet dread, always expecting something to go wrong, even in peaceful moments. You blame yourself for not being good enough, or lash out at others, losing genuine connection. You feel isolated, distant, as if you no longer belong anywhere. In Buddhism, this is known as vipallasa, distorted perception, when ignorance and accumulated suffering warp how we see the world. You no longer see reality as it is, but through a lens of fear, pain, and unmet expectations. False perception is the root of all suffering. Majjhima Nikaya. Jack Kornfield, a pioneering American Buddhist teacher, once said, "When you're lost in a swirl of thoughts, you are not yourself. You are an unobserved mind." He describes prolonged stress as a spiritual fog that disconnects you from both yourself and the world. In The Wise Heart, Kornfield emphasizes, mindfulness isn't about escaping stress, it's about walking through it, with gentleness and clarity. Sharon Salzberg, co-founder of the Insight Meditation Society in Massachusetts, says, "Mental stress is like a dark room. Compassion is the light that lets you begin to see the way." Salzberg doesn't see depression, panic, or anxiety as failures of the mind, but as signals waiting to be heard. When we sit with them, with loving kindness, without judgment, that's when healing begins. In many Western meditation centers, mindfulness meditation is used not just as a spiritual practice but as a therapeutic method. When we learn to observe stress without being swept away by it, this gentle separation reduces the inner burden. Only when your mind stops to listen can you hear the true call of life. Ajahn Sumedho, British Buddhist monk. Ajahn Sumedho, a Western disciple ordained in the Thai forest tradition, often reminds us, stress is not the enemy. It's the lesson that hasn't yet been learned. He teaches that every difficult emotion, when embraced with mindfulness, can become a doorway to wisdom and compassion. The key isn't to eliminate stress, but to transform your relationship with it. No longer avoiding or judging, just staying, being present, and listening deeply to yourself. And that, perhaps, is the most revolutionary act we can take in a world so full of noise and haste. The power of belief. Stress can heal. Belief alters physiology when you see stress through a new lens. For decades, health professionals have warned about the dangers of stress, high blood pressure, heart failure, tooth decay, anxiety, depression, and insomnia. But a large-scale study has shaken what once seemed like a firm conclusion. This study tracked over 30,000 Americans for 8 years. Participants were asked 2 questions. How much stress have you experienced in the past year? Do you believe that stress is harmful to your health? The results were startling. People who experienced high levels of stress and believed that stress was harmful had a 43% higher risk of death. In contrast, those who experienced high stress but did not believe it was harmful had the lowest mortality risk of all. From this, scientists proposed a revolutionary idea. Your belief about stress is more important than the stress itself. In other words, what makes stress dangerous isn't just its frequency or intensity, but the way you think about it. If you believe stress is toxic, your body will biologically respond with resistance, triggering inflammation, narrowing blood vessels, and weakening the immune system. But if you believe stress is a support mechanism, helping you rise to the challenge, your body adapts more effectively, hormones are metabolized more constructively, the heart and brain become more agile, and your recovery improves. Belief, in this case, isn't just mental, it acts as a biological switch that regulates deep physiological responses. If you view stress as your body preparing you for life, it will make you stronger, not wear you down. Kelly McGonigal, TED Talk. Change your mindset, change your physiology. In a prominent Harvard University study led by Dr. Jeremy Jameson, participants were placed in high-stress situations, forced to give impromptu speeches about their weaknesses in front of evaluators, under bright lights and cameras. Before the test, half of the participants were trained to reframe stress. They were told, "A fast heartbeat means your body is fueling up for action. Short, rapid breathing increases oxygen to the brain, aiding focus. Feeling stressed is not your enemy, it's a sign that something important is happening." The results didn't just improve mindset, physiological differences were clear. Unlike the control group, whose blood vessels constricted as expected in a stress response, this group maintained flexible, healthy vascular dilation, which prevented heart strain. They recovered faster, felt less fatigued, and made better decisions. Researchers called this healthy stress physiology, a state in which the body doesn't defend against stress, but adapts to it. It's the same biological response we experience when feeling excited, courageous, or in love. Another study at Stanford University, led by Dr. Alia Crum, showed that just 10 minutes per day of positive stress-related media for 1 week resulted in improved job performance, increased resilience under pressure, reduced long-term burnout. Your mindset about stress not only shapes your experience, it shapes your biology. Dr. Alia Crum, Stanford University. More and more, science reveals that instead of avoiding stress at all costs, we need to build a healthy relationship with it, one where we don't fear it, but recognize it as a signal of life, growth, and presence. Participants were guided to reinterpret their stress responses. They were told, "A fast heartbeat is how your heart supports you in facing challenges. Rapid breathing fuels your brain with oxygen. Your whole body is gearing up, not shutting down. The outcome, greater confidence, better focus, less anxiety." Most notably, their cardiovascular systems didn't constrict as usual under stress, but maintained a healthier, more open state. Scientists again labeled this response healthy stress physiology, similar to what we experience when we feel alive, brave, or deeply connected. Your mindset about stress not only shapes your experience, it shapes your biology. Dr. Alia Crum, Stanford University. Stories of those who thrive with stress. While many try to escape stress by chasing perfect calm, some people choose to live alongside it as an essential part of a meaningful life. They don't see stress as a sign of failure or danger, but as a signal of deep engagement with life. Sharon Salzberg, a pioneer in mindfulness meditation in the US, once said, "When your heart races, don't see it as a sign of collapse. Think, my body is helping me begin something important." She describes nervousness, restlessness, even anxiety, not as things to avoid, but as proof that you are showing up fully, bravely, and consciously in life's challenges. For Salzberg, the problem isn't the feeling, it's how we talk to the feeling. A powerful example comes from Eric Weihenmayer, the first blind person to summit Mt. Everest. Throughout his journey, he recalled every rush of adrenaline, every jolt of fear, not as obstacles, but as guides. He said, "I didn't try to calm myself. I listened to my fear and let it keep me alert. I treated adrenaline like a companion, it kept me alive." A Yale study also showed that healthcare workers in high-pressure environments who viewed stress as part of their purpose experienced better mental health, less burnout, and more sustainable energy over time. Similarly, in the world of artistic performance, world-renowned cellist Yo-Yo Ma shared that he still gets nervous before every major concert. But instead of suppressing it, he welcomes it as something sacred. "When I tremble, I know I still care. I still have passion. It means I'm still living truthfully with myself." All these stories point to a common truth. Those who thrive with stress don't need it to disappear, they just need to transform their relationship with it. They see it as part of growth, contribution, and presence. Stress isn't a sign you're doing something wrong. It may be a sign you're doing something that matters. Dr. Kelly McGonigal. While many run from stress, others learn to befriend it. They see every challenge as a chance to grow, and every bodily reaction as a reminder. I'm alive. When your heart races, don't see it as a breakdown. See it as your body helping you start something meaningful. Sharon Salzberg. Healing through connection, oxytocin, and the power of human bonding. 1. Oxytocin, the hormone of healing. When we think of stress, we often picture adrenaline and cortisol, the two hormones linked to the fight-or-flight response. But few people know that a third hormone is also released during stress, oxytocin. Oxytocin is commonly called the love hormone. It's released when we hug a loved one, laugh with friends, or even just make eye contact with kindness. But here's the miracle: stress also triggers the release of oxytocin, as a biological mechanism to draw us closer, not apart. Unlike cortisol, which constricts blood vessels, raises heart rate, and suppresses immunity, oxytocin dilates blood vessels, easing strain on the heart. Reduces inflammation, protecting cells from damage. Promotes prosocial behavior, encourages support-seeking, and fosters openness. This reveals something profound: the body is not only preparing to fight, it is also preparing to connect. The release of oxytocin is biology's way of saying, reach out. We are meant to face this together. When you open up emotionally, help someone, or simply sit beside a person in pain, you're not just helping them, you're healing yourself. A powerful example comes from a study at the University of Zurich, where researchers found that hugging someone for just 20 seconds significantly increases oxytocin and lowers cortisol levels, especially in stressful moments. The feeling of safety in the touch of someone you trust is a natural medicine produced by your own body. In a cancer care program in Sweden, participants who joined empathetic support groups, where they could share and be heard without judgment, showed a surge in oxytocin, along with reduced pain, better sleep, and increased hope for life. The healing didn't come from medicine, it came from connection. In the US, renowned therapist Dr. Sue Johnson, founder of emotionally focused therapy, EFT, has shown that couples who learn to hug and express love during stress cope far better. Even a single phrase like "I'm here with you" in a tense moment can recalibrate the entire physiological response. Stress drives you to other people. Oxytocin reminds you, you don't have to fight alone. Dr. Kelly McGonigal. So next time you feel overwhelmed, don't withdraw. Remember, a gentle look, a warm hug, a kind word, these may be the most powerful medicine we have ever known. Modern science shows that it's not just the body that needs oxytocin, our hearts and spirits need it too. To heal. To keep believing. To live fully. Healing through connection, why we need each other now more than ever. Stress cannot be separated from our social relationships. When you feel lonely, abandoned, or misunderstood, your brain registers that as a survival threat. In ancient times, being cut off from the tribe often meant death. And even now, isolation triggers powerful stress responses. When we feel left behind, brain regions like the anterior cingulate cortex and insula, the same areas activated by physical pain, light up. In other words, loneliness can hurt as much as a physical wound. But even the smallest act of connection can shift our inner landscape. A simple message, a handshake, a walk with someone you love. These seemingly ordinary acts activate the social nervous system, calm the sympathetic stress response, and stimulate healing biology. A study at UCLA showed that students with strong social networks had higher oxytocin levels, lower cortisol, and fewer mental health issues during exams. At the Institute for Social Neuroscience in Chicago, researchers found that people with close, regular relationships had stronger prefrontal cortex networks, giving them better emotional regulation and stress resilience. A more relatable example. A Carnegie Mellon University study showed that for every close friend you have, your risk of catching a cold drops by about 10%, thanks to enhanced immune response from emotional connection. Humans were not designed to live alone. Your body knows this. Your brain knows this. And your heart reminds you every single day. Dr. Dean Ornish. In today's world, where technology connects us to thousands yet leaves us emptier than ever, true connection, from the heart, remains the most powerful antidote to stress. Simple practices to nurture healing connections. Share your emotions with someone you trust, instead of hiding them. This is not weakness, it is a strength of those who know how to heal. A Stanford study showed that talking about negative emotions with loved ones reduced cortisol levels by 27% in just 20 minutes. Listen without judgment, this creates a safe space where oxytocin can flourish. When you truly listen, you allow the other person to feel seen, and that is healing in its purest form. Write a gratitude letter or send a thank you text. This act stimulates the release of oxytocin and dopamine. In a University of Pennsylvania study, people who wrote gratitude letters weekly for 3 weeks experienced better sleep and more positive emotions. Practice loving-kindness meditation, proven to activate brain areas linked to empathy and naturally increase oxytocin. Just 10 minutes a day can boost self-acceptance and social interaction. Join value-based communities, yoga classes, meditation groups, volunteer teams. These are spaces of authentic connection. The feeling of belonging is a deep psychological need, and these communities offer solid support during tough times. Engage in healthy physical touch, holding hands, a reassuring touch, or even compassionate eye contact, all trigger brain regions tied to safety and trust. A University of Wisconsin study found that holding a loved one's hand during stress reduced cortisol and boosted alpha brain waves, the waves associated with calm. When you open your heart, you heal yourself. When you connect, you give life. This section closes with a profound truth. Stress is not a full stop. It's an invitation to return, to connect, and to heal. Train your brain to walk with stress. If you want to live with stress in a healthier way, try these. Name your stress. Instead of saying, "I'm so anxious," say, "I feel pressure because this matters to me." This reduces panic and restores emotional control. Change the question. Instead of "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What can I learn from this experience?" This shifts your brain from survival mode to growth mode. Journal your feelings, write what you're feeling, then write one small action you can take. This helps transition from chaos to clarity. Find purpose in stress. Ask yourself, if I overcome this, how will I be stronger? This connects stress to your core values. You can also practice. Visualize the stress as a game level, a training scene where you're leveling up. This activates internal motivation and a sense of agency. Deep breathing, 4 to 6 breaths per minute for 3 minutes, a scientifically supported technique that activates the vagus nerve and restores nervous system balance. Light physical exercise, like brisk walking, jumping rope, or stretching for 5 minutes, helps discharge excess adrenaline and restore vitality. Those who coexist well with stress often have a growth mindset. They don't see challenges as limits, but as foundations for their next evolution. Stress isn't a sign you're doing something wrong. Sometimes, it's the clearest evidence that you're living aligned with what matters most. Buddhism and the transformation of stress from the root. The root of stress through the lens of Buddhism. Buddhism examines the root of suffering, not in circumstances, but in the mind's reaction to those circumstances. In the Four Noble Truths, the Buddha taught, there is suffering. Stress is one form of suffering. There is a cause of suffering, craving, aversion, ignorance, attachment. Suffering can be ended. There is a path to end suffering, the Noble Eightfold Path. This means suffering is not inevitable, it can be transformed. The root of suffering, including stress and anxiety, lies in our resistance to the present moment, our clinging to outcomes, and our ignorance of our true nature. For example, someone under financial pressure, if consumed by fear and attachment, may see life as hopeless. But if viewed with mindful awareness, they might instead see, this is a chance to practice letting go, patience, and simplifying life. That shift in perspective opens the door to inner liberation. Buddhism does not teach us to escape stress. On the contrary, the Buddha invites us to look directly at it as an opportunity for reflection, deep understanding, and transformation from within, rather than merely treating surface symptoms. Mindfulness, the art of living in the present. Mindfulness is the capacity to be fully present with what is happening, here and now, without judgment. In the Buddha's teachings, it's not just a technique, but the heart of awakening. A mind not pulled by the past, not anxious about the future, and not blindly reacting to the present. When we're truly present with our body and mind, we step out of automatic reactions like anger, panic, or avoidance. Instead, we observe emotions, recognize stress, and choose to respond with awareness. At that point, stress becomes an opportunity, not a threat. Modern neuroscience confirms this. Mindfulness meditation reduces activity in the amygdala, the brain's fear and alarm center. It increases connectivity to the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain linked to logic, emotional regulation, and self-awareness. In other words, mindfulness helps you become calmer, clearer, and more intentional, rather than being controlled by stress. Practical example, Jon Kabat-Zinn and MBSR. Professor Jon Kabat-Zinn, a pioneer in bringing mindfulness into Western medicine, founded the Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction (MBSR) program at the University of Massachusetts in 1979. He didn't start with religious belief, but with a deep understanding of the modern mind-body connection. Thousands of patients with cancer, heart disease, chronic pain, and anxiety have significantly improved their well-being through this 8-week mindfulness practice. Mindfulness doesn't remove stress from your life, but it changes the way you live with it. Jon Kabat-Zinn. Mindfulness in daily life, without hours of meditation. Mindfulness isn't limited to sitting meditation. It's also washing dishes mindfully, feeling warm water on your hands, attending to each movement instead of letting your mind wander. Listening mindfully, not interrupting or reacting quickly, but being fully present with the person in front of you. Breathing mindfully, just 3 conscious breaths can bring you back to peace. Every moment you pause and feel what's truly happening, whether it's anger, fear, or joy, you withdraw energy from automatic stress reactions and reclaim the power of conscious presence. A gentle conclusion for this section. In Buddhism, mindfulness isn't a tool to control stress, it's a path back to yourself. When you come home to yourself, you stop running. And when you stop running, stress no longer has power over you. Where mindfulness resides, freedom begins. And where freedom exists, stress cannot dominate. Reframing emotion, seeing stress as a teacher. In Buddhist teachings, emotions are not enemies. Instead, each emotion is a visitor bringing a message from deep within our consciousness. When you feel stressed, anxious, or afraid, it's a signal that something inside is asking to be seen, heard, and understood. Rather than suppressing or denying stress, practitioners are encouraged to sit with the emotion, as one would sit with a friend in pain. Hold your emotion like you would hold a crying baby. You don't have to fix it. Just be present with love. Thich Nhat Hanh. The practice of understanding and love with stressful emotions. In Buddhism, emotions, whether pleasant or painful, aren't labeled as good or bad. They are temporary manifestations of the mind, like waves on the surface of a lake. When we meet them with awareness and compassion, they can be understood, embraced, and ultimately transformed. One gentle yet powerful method is breathing with the emotion, called understanding and love, taught by Thich Nhat Hanh. Step 1. Acknowledge the emotion, without denial or drama. When emotions like worry, fear, or anger arise, don't avoid or suppress them. Don't turn them into inner tragedy either. Instead, acknowledge them honestly and gently. I recognize there is worry in me. I feel a heat rising in my chest. This might be anger. Naming the emotion activates the prefrontal cortex, the brain's center for self-awareness and regulation. Simply seeing the emotion often reduces its intensity significantly. Step 2. Label the emotion in neutral terms. Remember, you have emotions, but you are not your emotions. Emotions are fleeting mental states, like waves, not the ocean itself. Tell yourself, this is worry. This is a mind state passing through. It does not define me. This gentle separation helps you avoid being overwhelmed or identified with the emotion, and instead cultivates clarity and strength. Step 3. Breathe with the emotion, embrace it with mindfulness. Now, invite the emotion into your awareness as you would hold a scared child. Breathing in, I hold this worry with care. Breathing out, I smile to it. You don't need to get rid of it. You don't need to fix it. Just be there fully with it, breath by breath, like a tender mother calming her child. The breath becomes a bridge between body and mind, between emotional reaction and healing awareness. Step 4. Observe the change, without clinging or pushing away. Emotions, like weather, are always changing. As you sit quietly and breathe with them, you may begin to notice. Worry doesn't last forever. Sadness has its own rhythm, it rises and falls. Anger, if not fed, dissolves like mist. Observe emotions like clouds floating through the sky. Don't grasp them. Don't resist them. Simply watch, with gentle awareness. Emotions are guests. They come, they stay a while, then they leave. Welcome them as part of learning to love yourself. Rumi. In summary, the practice of understanding and love doesn't require you to be a great meditator or a fearless warrior. It begins with kindness toward yourself, with the courage to sit with what is, instead of running away. From this wholehearted presence, stress loses its grip, and becomes a doorway to inner freedom. From avoidance to acceptance, the maturity of the heart. When you stop fleeing your emotions and instead meet them with mindfulness and compassion, you cultivate a powerful Buddhist quality, fearlessness, abhya, considered the ground of true wisdom. A student anxious about exams, instead of trying to forget, can sit down and write out their fear, and see clearly, the fear isn't an enemy, but the voice of something inside them that wants to grow. An adult facing job loss, instead of drinking to forget, may choose to meditate, journal, or confide in someone they trust, realizing that stress is pointing to a needed awakening. A gentle closing thought. Buddhism does not promise a life free from stress. But it offers a path to meet stress with wisdom and compassion, so that each emotion becomes a companion on the journey of transformation. Emotions are like the wind. Don't build your house on the wind. But do learn to listen. For the wind has something to tell you. Spiritual science, when science and meditation meet in the healing of stress. Modern science is rediscovering meditation. For thousands of years, meditation and mindfulness practices have been seen as spiritual paths to inner peace. Today, breakthroughs in neuroscience, physiology, and psychology confirm what ancient practitioners experienced firsthand. Meditation and mindfulness actually reshape the brain's structure and function. Multiple MRI studies show the amygdala, the brain's stress and fear center, shrinks and quiets down after just a few weeks of meditation. The hippocampus, responsible for memory and learning, grows in volume. The prefrontal cortex, linked to reasoning, emotional regulation, and self-awareness, strengthens its neural connections. Mindfulness isn't just a skill, it's a form of neural training. Dr. Richie Davidson, University of Wisconsin-Madison. Meditation and the parasympathetic nervous system, PNS. Stress activates the sympathetic nervous system, pushing the body into fight or flight mode. In contrast, meditation, deep breathing, and mindfulness activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which helps the body lower heart rate and blood pressure, improve blood flow to the brain and vital organs, calm the digestive system and enhance absorption, restore a sense of safety, presence, and compassion. In compassion meditation, the body releases higher levels of oxytocin, the bonding hormone, and reduces cortisol, the stress hormone. The feeling of peace isn't just a mental illusion, it's a physiological state of healing. Cells and emotions, an inseparable link. Researcher Dr. Candace Pert once said, "Every emotion you feel is stored in every cell of your body." Prolonged negative emotions, such as anger, resentment, or fear, if unprocessed, can lead to chronic inflammation, immune suppression, and long-term illness. Conversely, positive emotions like gratitude, love, and contentment support optimal self-function and boost the body's natural healing abilities. Consistent meditation has been shown to reduce pro-inflammatory gene expression, increase telomerase, the enzyme that protects chromosomes and slows aging, boost NK, natural killer, cell activity, enhancing the body's defense against cancer cells. The union of wisdom and spirit. The 21st century marks a new era of reconnection, where science is beginning to validate what intuition and spirituality have long known. When the mind is guided by mindfulness and compassion, and the body is nurtured through conscious awareness, we enter a state of wholeness, healthy, clear, and fully present. More and more doctors, psychologists, and researchers around the world are integrating meditation, yoga, and mindfulness into therapeutic approaches for cancer, depression, PTSD, and chronic illness. This affirms a simple truth. The deepest healing does not come from medicine, but from the capacity to reconnect with ourselves. Stress is no longer a villain to be eliminated, but a messenger, a signal that you're alive, that you care, that your heart is invested in this life. When you change your perspective on stress, you change the way you live. When you learn to connect to yourself, to others, and to the present moment, you don't just survive stress, you transform it into vital life energy. And perhaps, on a weary day, all it takes is a single conscious breath, a gentle look of compassion, a word spoken with true empathy, to help you step into a space beyond fear. A place where stress may still exist, but it no longer controls you. A place where you return as the sovereign of your own life. You don't need to silence the storm. Just learn to stand calmly in its heart, with an open heart. Dear friend, if you've stayed with me until this very last moment, I believe a seed has been quietly planted within you. It may not bloom right away, but it will take root. It will grow when you learn to live with stress, with understanding and compassion. This life doesn't ask you to be perfect. It doesn't demand that you're always strong. It only asks that you be honest with your emotions, gentle with your pain, and that you keep coming home to yourself. One breath, one moment at a time. And if today's message touched something in you, leave a comment below so I know you're there. Subscribe to Buddha Balance so you won't miss the next healing journey. And share this video with someone you love. Because maybe, just maybe, they too are in need of a gentle light like this. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And thank you for living with all the truth and tenderness in your heart.